Down in the holler where the river's been, where the mountains whisper and the night never ends. I grew up in the shadow of a southern sky, with dirt on my hands and a dream in my eye. The winds may blow and the storms may roll, but the heart of the holler's what keeps me home.
Hey everybody, welcome to House Connell. You guys, welcome to BBN Bobina's Book Nook, Rustucious Films, Bobina Productions. You guys, I had no intention of going live today. I meant to launch the pre-record out. So you guys, right now we are getting into the second half of Hillbilly Elegy. I'm trying to make sure that everything's live on all platforms. I don't see me. Yep, I'm on X. We're live. We're good to go. If you are here with me on the X platform, you guys, please kindly repost the space, retweet it, all of it, whatever you like to call it. You guys, we're also on the Rumble platform, the YouTube platform, as well as Facebook, formerly known as Twitter. You guys, we are getting into chapter 6 of Hillbilly Elegy by our Vice President JD Vance. Congratulations, JD Vance, your good wife Usha. You guys, this is the thumbnail my husband made me. So without further ado, you guys, I'm going to take myself off the stage. I'm working from behind the camera again. Once again, this was fully intended to be a pre-record live. So you guys, please feel free to throw your comments in the comment section and come back tomorrow at noon, where we will be finishing up the second half of chapter 6 and carrying on. So I'm going to show the banner. Congratulations to Vice President JD Vance, because when I did this pre-record, he was still Vice President-elect. All right, you guys, thanks for joining me. You guys, again, please hit that like, share, and subscribe. But most importantly, leave your feedback. Let us know what you think. And let's get to know our new Vice President, JD Vance. And we'll also get to know his family as well. All right, let's get into this, guys. Thanks for joining.
Bobina's Book Nook. Please note that any material discussed here is solely to honor and promote the author. The views and opinions expressed by the author do not necessarily reflect those of the show. Enjoy the journey.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Bobina's Book Nook. My name is Regina Connell, and we'll spend a lot of time on formalities. You guys, we are diving into chapter 6 of Hillbilly Elegy by JD Vance. Thank you guys for joining. You guys, I don't have the camera on right now. I'm hiding behind the camera. So let's get this reading started. Chapter 6. One of the questions I loathed and that adults always ask was whether I had any brothers or sisters. When you're a kid, you can't wave your head. When you're a kid, you can't wave your hand, say, quote, it's complicated, and move on. And unless you're a particularly capable sociopath, dishonesty can only take you so far. So, for a time, I dutifully answered, walking people through the tangled web of familial relationships that I'd grown accustomed to. I had a biological half-brother and half-sister whom I never saw because my biological father had given me up for adoption. I had many stepbrothers and stepsisters by one measure, but only 2 if you limited the tally to the offspring of mom's husband of the moment. Then there was my biological dad's wife, and she had at least 1 kid, so maybe I should count him too. Sometimes I'd wax philosophical about the meaning of the word, quote, sibling. Are the children of your mom's previous husbands still related to you? If so, what about the future children of your mom's previous husbands? By some metrics, I probably had about a dozen step-siblings. There was one person for whom the term, quote, sibling definitely applied. My sister, Lindsay. If any adjective ever preceded her introduction, it was always one of pride. My full sister, Lindsay, my whole sister, Lindsay, my big sister, Lindsay. Lindsay was and remains the person I was proudest to know. The moment I learned that, quote, half sister, end quote, had nothing to do with my affections and everything to do with the generic nature of our relationship, that Lindsay, by virtue of having a different father, was just as much my half sister as people I'd never seen, remains one of the most. And you guys, please forgive me for stumbling over my words. I did pre-record this a couple of weeks ago. And when we pick up on Thursday, you guys, please don't forget to come back tomorrow at noon. We'll finish the second half of this chapter and get into an open discussion. If you're ever interested in becoming a guest right here on the Book Nook, please throw me a DM, throw it in the comment section, and we'll certainly get you up here. All right. Thanks for joining us, guys. Let's continue on. Devastating moments of my life. Mama told me this nonchalantly as I exited the shower one night before bedtime, and I screamed and wailed as if I'd just learned that my dog had died. I calmed down only after Mama relented and agreed that henceforth no one would ever refer to Lindsay as my, quote, half-sister again. Lindsay Lee was 5 years older than I was, born just 2 months after Mom graduated from high school. I was obsessed with her, both in the way that all children adored their older siblings and in a way that was unique to our circumstances. Her heroism on my behalf was the stuff of legend. One time, after she and I argued over a soft pretzel, leading Mom to drop me off in an empty parking lot to show Lindsay what life without me would look like. It was my sister's fit of sorrow and rage that brought Mom back immediately. During explosive fights between Mom and whatever man she let into our home, it was Lindsay who withdrew to her bedroom to place a rescue call to Mama and Papa. She fed me when I was hungry, changed my diaper when no one else did, and dragged me everywhere with her, even though Mama and Aunt Wee told me I weighed nearly as much as she did. I always saw her as more adult than child. She never expressed her displeasure at her teenage boyfriends by storming off and slamming doors. When Mom worked late nights or otherwise didn't make it home, Lindsay ensured that we had something for dinner. I annoyed her, like all little brothers annoy their sisters, but she never yelled at me, screamed at me, or made me afraid of her. In one of my most shameful moments, I wrestled Lindsay to the ground for reasons I don't remember. I was 10 or 11. If you guys are just now joining us, you guys, we are in chapter 6 of Hillbilly Elegy by Vice President JD Vance. He's describing his relationship with his nuclear family, his sister Lindsay, his mother Bev, and many others, especially Mama and Papa. Congratulations to all of you. And we want to lift up especially Bev and Mama and all the Blant boys and everyone who had a hand in raising JD Vance. And let's not forget his good queen, his good wife, Usha. All right, you guys, let's continue on. Which would have made her about 15. And though I realized then that I'd outgrown her in terms of strength, I continued to think there was nothing childlike about her. She was above it all, the, quote, one true adult in the house, end quote, as Papa would say, and my first line of defense, even before Mama. She made dinner when she had to, did the laundry when no one else did, and rescued me from the back seat of that police cruiser. I depended on her so completely that I didn't see Lindsay for what she was, a young girl, not yet old enough to drive a car, learning to fend for herself and her little brother at the same time. That began to change the day our family decided to give Lindsay a shot at her dreams. Lindsay had always been a beautiful girl. When my friends and I ranked the world's prettiest girls, I listed Lindsay first, just ahead of Demi Moore and Pam Anderson. Lindsay had learned of a modeling recruitment event at a Dayton hotel. So, Mama, Lindsay, and I piled into Mama's Buick and headed north. Lindsay was bursting with excitement, and I was too. This was going to be her big break, and by extension, our whole family's. When we arrived at the hotel, a lady instructed us to follow signs to a giant ballroom and wait in line. The ballroom was perfectly tacky in that 1970s sort of way: ugly carpet, big chandeliers, and light just bright enough to prevent you from stumbling over your own feet. I wondered how any talent agent could ever appreciate my sister's beauty. It was too damn dark. Eventually, we reached the front of the line, and the talent agent seemed optimistic about my sister. She said something about how cute she was and told her to go wait in another room. Surprisingly, she said that I was model material too and asked if I'd like to follow my sister and hear about our next step. I agreed enthusiastically. After a little while in the holding room, Lindsay and I and the other selectees learned that we had made it to the next round, but another trial awaited us in New York City. The agency employees gave us brochures with more information and told us that we needed to RSVP within the next few weeks. On the way home, Lindsay and I were ecstatic. We were going to New York City to become famous models. The fee for traveling to New York was hefty, and if someone had really wanted us as models, they likely would have paid for our audition. In hindsight, the cursory treatment they gave each individual, each quote audition, was no longer than a few sentence conversation, suggests that the whole event was more scam than talent search. But I don't know. Model audition protocol has never been my area of expertise. I know one person who is an expert in that area, and that would be Mae Musk, the mother of Elon Musk. You guys, we are going to be covering at some point Mae Musk's book, A Woman Makes a Plan. So I am really excited about that coming up. All right, guys, let's continue on. I'm going to play something different in the background for you guys. I think I already got rid of it, but I'm going to bring it back up. Anyways, so yeah, let's go. It's going to read chapter 2, but we're really in chapter 6. I just didn't make a new video. And remember, this reading will only stay up for 24 hours after the launch of it, the morning, and then we'll have the live discussion at noon. All right, let's keep going. So, you guys, I did want to make a correction on that. That is no longer the case. We decided to do a podcast pivot. And so we will be reverting to the original format when we first launched Bobina's Book Nook. And that's back when we were doing it on my iPhone and uploading 20-minute videos up to YouTube, you guys. So thank you for joining us. You guys, if you're just now joining us, welcome in. We're in chapter 6, part 1 of Hillbilly Elegy by Vice President JD Vance. So you guys, please share the space, like, and please subscribe if you can. All right, you guys, and the subscription is absolutely free. If you want to sew in further, hey, just watch the whole of the content. The watch time hours really do help us. All right, you guys. So no, we what I said is an untrue statement. We will go back to reading the book like I used to, and we can pause and discuss. Now, I will warn everybody, I do try to keep it to an hour or less. That will probably go over for this book as the chapters are pretty lengthy in some areas. We will be opening up chapter 7, and my confession, I had actually had to I had some trouble when I was laying down chapter 7 for the pre-record, and it only got half of it. It was like my third time laying it down again, and I was like, you know what? I guess this is God's way of saying we just need to go back to the original way that we had things. So you guys, once again, thanks for joining. I think we're about halfway through this. Well, not quite. We're about 10 minutes through. So this video itself is about almost 30 minutes long. Gives a lot of insight into JD as a child, how he grew up, how he was brought up, and even through his mother's struggles. I will say it seemed like, she she struggled with demons of her own, and it seems like she was able to get to the other side of them. I mean, she had and helped raise JD, and they do say it takes a village. All right, you guys, without further ado, let's continue chapter 6, part 1 of Hillbilly Elegy, and Good Hubby titled it Escape from Dysfunction. All right, let's keep going. And I like that too, because in this chapter he references how the various family members did different things with their lives in order to, most of them, escape the hollers of West Virginia and seeking a better, more stable life for their family and their children. All right, let's continue on. What I do know is that our exuberance didn't survive the car ride. Mom began to worry aloud about the cost of the trip, causing Lindsay and me to bicker about which one of us should go. And one last detail, this is a disclaimer. This would be a good time to play the disclaimer once again. You guys, this is sensitive material. JD Vance really, I thought, he pulled back the veil and he really just exposed himself. You guys, let's remember this book was published in 2016. Let's play the disclaimer and then we'll get it out of the way. You guys, I see the comment section. That's probably me commenting on my own stuff. So I'll check it in just a second. Let's keep going. Let's keep going.
Welcome to Babina's Book Nook. Please note that any material discussed here is solely to honor and promote the author. The views and opinions expressed by the author do not necessarily reflect those of the show. Enjoy the journey.
And then I also wanted to play the new intro that Big Russ has created for Babina's Book Nook. I hope you guys like it. And then you guys, we will dive right back into the second half of this part 1. And then don't forget to come back tomorrow at noon Eastern Standard Time, where we will be reading live the second half of chapter 6. I do have it on pre-record, but chapter 7, it'll be different. So you guys, thank you for joining. Here we go. All right, guys, let's get back to it. Mom became progressively angrier and then snapped that our exuberance didn't survive the car ride. Mom began to worry aloud about the cost of the trip, causing Lindsay and me to bicker about which one of us should go. Parentheses, no doubt I was being a brat. Parentheses closed. Mom became progressively angrier and then snapped. What happened next was no surprise. There was a lot of screaming, some punching and driving, and then a stopped car on the side of the road full of 2 sobbing kids. Mama intervened before things got out of hand, but it's a miracle we didn't crash and die. Mom driving and slapping the kids in the back seat. Mama on the passenger side, slapping and screaming at Mom. That was why the car stopped. Though Mom was a multitasker, this was too much. We drove home in silence after Mama explained that if Mom lost her temper again, Mama would shoot her in the face. That night, we stayed at Mama's house. I'll never forget Lindsay's face as she marched upstairs to bed. It wore the pain of a defeat known by only a person who experiences the highest high and the lowest low in a matter of minutes. She had been on the cusp of achieving a childhood dream. Now she was just another teenage girl with a broken heart. Mama turned to retire to her couch, where she would watch Law and Order, read the Bible, and fall asleep. I stood in the near I stood in the narrow walkway that separated the living room from the dining room and asked Mama a question that had been on my mind since she ordered Mom to drive us home safely. I knew what she'd say, but I guess I just wanted reassurance. Mama, does God love us? She hung her head, gave me a hug, and began to cry. The question wounded Mama because the Christian faith stood at the center of our lives, especially hers. We never went to church except on rare occasions in Kentucky or when Mom decided that what we needed in our lives was religion. I bet that did break his grandmother, his Mama's heart, because I would think, when a child asks an adult, "Does God love us?" Something in their life must be off, for them to even ask that question, to feel unloved, and to even question God's love. So that's just my little 2 cents worth. Then let's continue on, guys. Mom, nevertheless, Mama's was a deeply personal, albeit quirky, faith. She couldn't say, quote, organized religion without contempt. She saw churches as breeding grounds for perverts and money changers. And she hated what she called, quote, the loud and proud, end quote. People who wore their faith on their sleeve, always ready to let you know how pious they were. Still, Still, she sent much of her spare income to churches in Jackson, Kentucky, especially those controlled by Reverend Donald Eisen, an older man who bore a striking resemblance to the priest from The Exorcist. Wow. By Mama's reckoning, God never left our side. He celebrated with us when times were good and comforted us when they weren't. During one of our many trips to Kentucky, Mama was trying to merge onto the highway after a brief stop for gas. She didn't pay attention to the signs, so we found ourselves headed the wrong way on a one-way exit ramp with angry motorists swerving out of our way. I was screaming in terror. But after a U-turn on a 3-lane interstate, the only thing Memo said about the incident was, quote, "We're fine, God damn it. Don't you know Jesus rides in the car with me?" End quote. Fantastic. I love that response. That's fantastic. The theology she taught was unsophisticated, but it provided a message I needed to hear. To coast through life was to squander my God given talent. So I had to work hard. I had to take care of my family because Christian duty demanded it. I needed to forgive, not just for my mother's sake, but for my own. I should never despair, for God had a plan. And I would have to agree, by the time we get to chapter 6, you will be taking your oath of office, and we will be referring to you as Vice President JD Vance. The theology she taught was unsophisticated, but it provided a message I needed to hear to coast through. Oh, okay, I already read that. Mama often told a parable. A young man was sitting at home when a terrible rainstorm began. Within hours, the man's house began to flood, and someone came to his door offering a ride to higher ground. The man declared, I know this one. I know this one. I know this one. This is a good one. Listen up, guys. A few hours later, as the waters engulfed the first floor of the man's home, a boat passed by, and the captain offered to take the man to safety. The man declined declined, saying, God will take care of me. A few hours after that, as the man waited on his roof, his entire home flooded. A helicopter flew by, and the pilot offered transportation to dry land. Again, the man declined, telling the pilot that God would take care of him, that God would care for him. Soon thereafter, the waters overcame the man, and as he stood before God in heaven, he protested his fate. Quote, you promised that you'd help me so long as I was faithful. End quote. God replied, I sent you a car, a boat, and a helicopter. Your death is your own fault. End quote. God helps those who help themselves. This was the wisdom of the book of Mama. The fallen world described by the Christian religion matched the world I saw around me. One where a happy car ride could quickly turn to misery. One where individual Sorry, you guys, I was muted out. You guys, sorry for the skipping and all of that. Normally, I'm direct wired to the router and all of that, so usually I don't have these issues. But thank you. We're almost done with this. There's about 10 more minutes left of this part 1 of chapter 6, getting to know Vice President JD Vance through his book, Hillbilly Elegy. We are in chapter 6, you guys. And I do want to thank everyone for joining us. If you're just now joining us, you guys, welcome. And please, if you like what you're hearing and seeing, please recommend it to a friend. Share out to as many spaces. We are on the Rumble platform. We are on the Facebook platform, formerly known as Twitter, as well as YouTube and the X platform. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. All right, you guys, I'm doing a lot of things at one time here. Forgive me. Again, I was not expecting to be live today. So thank you for sticking with me through all these fumbles and stuff. So let's get back to it. We've got about 10 minutes left in this first half of chapter 6 of Hillbilly Elegy. And if the skipping gets really too bad, I'll just go ahead and end it, and we'll just pick back up where we were tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you guys. All right, guys, let's get back into it. Conduct rippled across a family's and a community's life. When I asked Mama if God loved us, I asked her to reassure me that this religion of ours could still make sense of the world we lived in. I needed reassurance of some deeper
Thank you for the like.
some
Thank you for the like. I
cadence
appreciate
or
you.
rhythm that lurked beneath the heartache and chaos. Not long after Lindsay's childhood modeling dream went up in flames, I was in Jackson with Mama and my cousin Gail on August 2, my 11th birthday. Late in the afternoon, Mama advised me to call Bob, still my legal father, because I hadn't heard from him yet. After we moved back to Middletown, he and Mom divorced. So it wasn't surprising that he rarely got in touch Okay, you guys, get your box of tissues out. This is where JD's going to get into some really, really heartbreaking stuff that he went through. Again, there's a little over 10 minutes, about 11 minutes left of this first part of chapter 6. You guys, thank you for joining, and let's get into it.
But my birthday was obviously special, and I found it odd that he hadn't called. So I phoned and got the answering machine. A few hours later, I phoned once more with the same result, and I knew instinctively that I would never see Bob again, either because she felt bad for me or because she knew I loved dogs. Gail took me to the local pet store where a brand new litter of German Shepherd puppies was on display. I desperately wanted one and had just enough birthday money to make the purchase. Gail reminded me that dogs were a lot of work and that my family, Raid, my mother, had a terrible history of getting dogs and then giving them away. When wisdom fell on deaf ears, you're probably right, Gail, but they're so cute. Authority kicked in. Honey, I'm sorry, but I'm not letting you buy this dog. By the time we returned to Mama Blanton's house, I was more upset about the dog than about losing father number 2. I cared less about the fact that Bob was gone than about the disruption his departure would inevitably cause. He was
Once again, you guys, please forgive any skipping that might be on your end. This is impromptu. This was meant to be launched out as a pre-record. You guys, I thank you for watching, and don't forget to come back tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time as we dive into the second half of this chapter, and we will be doing it the same style. Thanks for joining.
just the latest casualty in a long line of failed paternal candidates. There was Steve, a soft-spoken man with a temperament to match. I used to pray that Mom would marry Steve because he was nice and had a good job, but they broke up and she moved on to Chip, a local police officer. Chip was kind of a hillbilly himself. He loved cheap beer, country music, and catfish fishing, and we got along well until he, too, was gone. One of the worst parts, honestly, was that Bob's departure would further complicate the tangled web of last names in our family. Lindsay was a Lewis, her dad's last name. Mom took the last name of whichever husband she was married to. Mama and Papa were Vances, and all of Mama's brothers were Blantons. I shared,
And hence the Blanton boys, you guys. And, I always wondered when I first started reading the book, I was like, well, dang, how did he get his last name Vance? Well, he just explained it. So he took it after Mama and Papa. The Blanton boys were on Mama's side, and the Vance family, I think I have that right. Or Vance was her, no, yeah. So Vance was on his paternal papa's side, and then Mama was a Blanton, and that's where the Blanton boys come in. All right, guys, enjoy the rest of this first half of Hillbilly Elegy, Chapter 6. My name is Regina Connell, and we will see you tomorrow, you guys, at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the second half of this book. Forgive the audio and skipping it once again. I will make sure the audio is better. Please leave any and all feedback and your thoughts in the comment section and future books you'd like to cover. I already have a few ideas. I'll share those later. All right, let's continue.
A name with no one I really cared about, which bothered me already. And with Bob gone, explaining why my name was JD Hamill would require a few additional awkward moments. Yeah. My legal father's last name is Hamill. You haven't met him because I don't see him. No, I don't know why I don't see him. End quote. It just amazes me that people would even ask someone that question. Good gravy. Anyways, so I agree with you. Names are important, strong names. So, yep. Of all the things that I hated about my childhood, nothing compared to the revolving door of father figures. To her credit, Mom had avoided abusive or neglectful partners.
And I love the way that, he always gives honor to his mother. He's transparent about, and he does mention in the book that he did speak to his family before writing and publishing this book. So it seems like he had everyone's blessing in deciding to go ahead and pen this book and share it with the world. And we're glad that you did, Vice President Vance, because now we're getting to know you.
And I never felt mistreated by any of the men she brought into our home. But I hated the disruption, and I hated how often these boyfriends would walk out of my life just as I'd begun to like them. Lindsay, with the benefit of age and wisdom, viewed all of the men skeptically. She knew that.
And if you're just now joining us, you guys, remember Lindsay is his sister, his older sister.
At some point, they'd be gone. With Bob's departure, I had learned the same lesson. Mom brought these men into our lives for the right reasons. She often wondered aloud.
And he went into a lot deeper detail about Bev's marriage to Bob, the stepfather that he's talking about right now. That was in the previous chapter. They did try to make a go of it. It just didn't seem to work out.
Whether Chip or Bob or Steve would have, or Steve made good, quote, father figures. She would say, he takes you fishing, which is really good, or it's important to learn something about masculinity from someone closer to your age. When I heard her screaming at one of them or weeping on the floor after an especially intense argument, or when I saw her mired in despair after a breakup, I felt guilty that she was going through this for my sake. After all, I thought, Papa was plenty good as a father figure. I promised her after each breakup that we would be okay, or that.
All right, you guys, there is about 8 minutes left of this. If it continues to be really, really choppy, I'll probably go ahead and end it and just pick up where I left off. I'll be direct wired to my router tomorrow, so it should not skip like this. I do apologize once again, you guys. Let's see if we can get through the last 8 minutes, and hopefully we won't have these tech issues tomorrow. And once again, congratulations, President Donald J. Trump, our 45th and 47th President of the United States, as well as Vice President JD Vance and all of the other ones taking office. You guys were getting to know Vice President JD Vance from his 2016 book, Hillbilly Elegy. We are reading the first half of it. The tech is a little bit whack right now, but you guys bear with me and join us tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we'll be finishing out this chapter and discussing it a little bit, and then we'll do it all over again the following week. All right, let's keep rolling.
We'd get over this together. Or, echoing Mama, that we didn't need any damn men. I know Mom's motives were not entirely selfless. She, like all of us, was motivated by the desire for love and companionship, but she was looking out for us too. The road to hell, however, is paved with good intentions. My mother used to say that all the time on a side note.
All right, you guys, I think that's a good place. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. How many of you out there have ever been told that by a parent, a grandparent, anyone, whether it be inside your blood family, outside your family, whatever? You guys, I thank you for joining us today. My name is Regina Connell. This has been BBM Bobina's Book Nook. You guys, I want to do a huge shout out to Big Russ, my husband Rusty. He is the one who has made all this possible. He does all my thumbnails for me. He does my intro videos. So you guys, I'm sorry about the sound. Once again, I will be sure that it is better. He's going to be like, why do you keep repeating yourself? And I'll probably be on camera tomorrow as well. You guys, thank you so much once again. And we will see you next time here on Bobina's Book Nook. We are covering Hillbilly Elegy by Vice President JD Vance. And we will be covering the second half of chapter 6. All right, guys, be blessed. See you on the next one.